Good morning, everyone. Okay, so our topic name is differential amplifiers. This is the first lecture. My name is Hitesh Rimali. I am from ID Mandi, and it's a part of analog electronics undergraduate course. And this is the course agenda for the entire course. We have a different spectrum of understanding for differential amplifiers. So first of all, the course will start such a way that you can understand what is single-ended, what is pseudo-differential, what is differential, and what is fully differential amplifier. The main thing is when you are using any amplifier, it may be either of these four, but the main problem is when to use what and which kind of amplifier is suitable for your application and why to use differential at all, because differential will increase the area by double. So other than that, there is some requirement in the industry that when they are making some circuit, that circuit has to be process voltage and temperature independent, or you can say that process means your BJT or whatever the transistor you are using, their manufacturing should not vary the performance of that particular transistor or the differential operation. And when we are designing amplifier, let's assume that you are only want to achieve the gain of the circuit, because you know that all the passive circuits cannot give you amplification, but to get the amplification you need some amplifier, and to design an amplifier you need to have transistor or BJT. So in this course we are going to understand BJT, because that is more relevant to UG level courses rather than going to the MOSFET. But MOSFET is also related to that. If you understand this part of course, then you can understand MOSFET also very easily. And in that, like every time whenever there is a manufacturing company who are making the transistor, it's not always the same, and that is what I am going to call it the process dependency. That process should not be varying. Then the voltage, what I mean for voltage is, even if your supply voltage is varying by 10% or maybe varying by some more voltages, still your circuit should work. And another thing is temperature, means your circuit should work even for 0 degree, even for -40 degree, or even for 125 degree. So whenever there is an industry is making any amplifier which is differential by its structure or architecture, that industry is generally following different checklist, and that checklist follows the process voltage and temperature. And they are, after that also they are doing something called Monte Carlo, and they are checking all these things at the statistical variation method. And so these are the things which we want to achieve, or whatever the circuits we want to make, those has to be process voltage and temperature independent. They should not vary. So this is a checklist done by industry, and we are going to do the same. Now, single-ended differential amplifier, how the operation works, and on the basis of that single-ended operation, we are going to develop something called differential pair, and we are trying to understand the qualitative and the quantitative analysis of the amplifier and why it's useful. And thereafter, when you are using the differential amplifier, there is something called common mode. So common mode improvement, or when you are saying the common mode noise improvement, or the common mode gain, sometimes people call it CMRR, common mode rejection ratio. So all these things are good in differential circuit or the differential amplifier circuits. So we are going to study that, and for that we are going to put some of the uh, loads such as resistance, diode, and current on top of our differential pair, and this will give you a better common mode rejection and better small signal gain. And thereafter, the third part of the our course, it's associated with the frequency response. And frequency response is the one when your gain is limited by the bandwidth, or gain is limited by the extra poles and zero creation. So that we are going to study through one theorem, very famous theorem. It's called Miller theorem, and it's very important to understand that Miller theorem can give you poles, zeros, and bandwidth Sometimes some people call it unity gain bandwidth, where your gain becomes zero, or I mean to say 0 dB. And for 0 dB, the gain is unity means 1 volt per volt, and 0 dB is in dB. Okay, so these are the thing. Thereafter, these are the prerequisites of the course. Um, I believe that people know network analysis. People understand basic device understanding of BJT. So I'm not expecting too much uh, by saying that it's a device level understanding means you should know all the band bending diagrams and those things. Those are not going to help here. You need to understand how BJT in a like basic way how it works, or you know equations. Although we are going to cover all these things and we are going to start from beginning. For this basic electronics or basic BJT device understanding part, I'm going to go something called control theory. From control theory, one should understand what is stability, what is time response, what is frequency response. In frequency response, I'm expecting you should know Bode plot. Although I'll give you some tricks and techniques how to draw the Bode plot if it is needed. Okay, so these are the prerequisites agenda. So today we are going to cover understanding of BJT, basic understanding how the BJT works, and we are interested mainly in one region of operation which is called active mode of operation. So that is what we are going to cover in depth, because that is the region of operation where your BJT is going to give you amplification. And for that we are going to understand the current and voltage characteristic, what is the like how the shape looks like, and in ideal condition how does it look, and if there is some second order effects such as a small uh, in the it's called early effect voltage. If there is early effect voltage, what kind of shape is going to change and how it's affecting your performance. So that going to be covered in IV understanding. Then there is another part where we are going to make the small signal model. We are going to derive the small signal model, and that small signal model will be derived using Y parameter two port network. We are going to derive that, and thereafter there are basically different analysis are available which you have to do for making any amplifier. One of the analysis is DC analysis. Other than DC analysis, there is transient analysis or AC analysis. So DC analysis is the one which is associated with the DC voltages. So every node having some DC voltage, and that DC voltage is uh, will make sure that whether your transistor is in active mode or saturation mode or in cutoff mode. So those things are going to be understood in the DC analysis. Some people call it biasing, some people call it quiescent point, some people call it operating point. So all are uh, called, you can call those as synonyms, and they are coming under DC analysis. There is one more thing like transient analysis, which is with respect to time, and the AC analysis, that is with respect to frequency. So that AC analysis we are going to learn in the third lecture, and the transient analysis we are going to learn in the second lecture, means the next lecture. So this is how this whole course has been designed in 3 lectures. So now let's start with the references. So what reference I am using? This is very good book. It's called Fundamental of Microelectronics by Behzad Razavi. So it's a red color book, and it's covering BJT. Like most of the book, all the chapters are covering BJT and diodes, and it starts from zero. If you want to really want to understand the analog electronics very well, I suggest you should follow this book. It's very good book. Yeah. So now there are some of the salient features or some of the key points people are calling, like BJT is a bipolar junction transistor, and it's a current control current source device. This is the word I have copied from Behzad Razavi, this complete line. But maybe there are some different opinion from different people. Some people also calling that it's a current control voltage source, but that we are going to derive at the end of the today's lecture, that why it's current control current source or why it's current control voltage source. we are going to find out which is the correct one or both are correct. Then the emitter to collector current flow can be treated as a current source. So if you want to design a current source using BJT, you can make a BJT in an active mode, and you can find out the current flowing from the collector side to emitter side. We're going to call it as a current source, which can be the treated as a ideal current source. And the current is controlled by the voltage difference between base and emitter. So it's a VBE. So these were the some of the features how BJT works. Now there is one more important term which is known as transistor action. Transistor action is the one when the collector current and emitter current becomes equal. If collector current and emitter currents are both are equal, we are going to call it as a transistor action. I want to say that BJT needs to follow the transistor action, and the transistor action will have a collector current as well as emitter current, both are equal, then it's called transistor action. And emitter current in ideal condition, we have as per following the KCL, emitter current is equal to base current plus collector current. And if base current is very small compared to collector current, and if it is following emitter current as alpha times some collector current, where alpha is 1, then my transistor is following the transistor action. Otherwise it's not following the transistor action. You can make a little bit of deviation from the alpha as 1, maybe 0.9 or maybe 0.95, but not below that. Then you are not going to call your transistor in transistor action. Okay, so this was another part. Other than that, there are these are the known terms to you, that there are various regions of operation: cutoff, saturation, inverse. Yeah, so let's look at the cutoff as a first region of operation. Before that, let's look at or revisit the symbol of BJT. So wherever you are seeing this arrow, we are going to call it emitter, this is base, and this is collector. And if this is NPN, this is NPN, then it should follow this way. Base is connected to this one, this is connected to emitter, and this is connected to collector. So effectively there are two junctions we can see. One junction is going down towards emitter, one junction is towards collector, and we are going to define this one as base to collector junction and base to emitter junction. And there are, if this is base to emitter junction and this is base to collector junction, then for given two junctions you can have different possibilities, like base to emitter and base to collector. You have 4 possibilities that you can create. Either this one is forward bias, this one is forward bias, both can be reverse bias, one can be forward bias and one can be reverse bias. So all 4 possibilities give you one mode of operation. So if base to emitter junction, if it is forward bias, base to collector, if it is forward bias, then we are going to call it as a saturation mode of operation. For cutoff mode, both the junctions will be reverse bias. And inverse mode of operation, generally it's not going to happen. Most of the time you are keeping your transistor not in inverse, so it's a failure of your BJT, so it's not going to happen. If this is happening, means it's something problem with your BJT, and in that case base to emitter junction is reverse bias and collector to base junction is forward bias. Now looking to the most important part, when your base to emitter junction, is this one and base to collector junction is reverse bias, then this mode of operation is active mode of operation, and this mode of operation is the region where you want to get the amplification. or your amplifier or your BJT acts as an amplifier. So this is very important, that you have to keep your transistor in active mode of operation. If it is not there, then you cannot get the amplification, you will get some linear relation. One side there is N type and one side it's P type. So before starting BJT, I would like to tell you some interesting fact about PN junction. And the fact is, if I make this PN junction as a reverse bias, if there is a big battery at the connected as plus side and negative is connected to P side, when you are connecting P and N together, you are going to have depletion. Earlier it was this way. So near this junction, you are going to see the electron hole pairs, and there is a recombination. There is a region which is called depleted region. Now what I am doing, I am adding one extra electron, injecting over here. Let's assume that I am injecting extra electron. Note that this electron is minority carrier for p-type semiconductor, so it will not accept this p-type semiconductor. What it will say, do not be here, go to another side, and it will be pulled out because of this heavy battery is connected this side. When there is an experience of electric field and there is a movement of electron in the reverse direction of electron, you will have the current. This was one phenomena which I am going to use it to understand how your BJT works and how your BJT is going to give you some amplification. So this is very important. If you are injecting some electron from somewhere, so how I'm going to teach that in the explaining while the operation of BJT. In this, what we are doing, this is the thing we are doing. So following the way Behzad Razavi is doing, if there is a BJT, there is a PN junction this side. This junction I want to make it forward bias, and this junction I want to make it reverse bias. How to make forward bias and reverse bias? I believe you know that the anode voltage has to be more than cathode voltage by cut-in voltage or 0.7 volt. That is generally varies between 0.6 to 7, but most of the books follows this number, so that's why I'm saying that cut-in voltage is 0.7 volt. So if this potential is higher than this side by 0.7, more than 0.7, it will make it forward bias. So I am calling it, let's assume that it's 0.8 volt, and this side there is one more PN junction. This side has to be higher than the VBE or base to emitter voltage. How much I am going to apply? In this one they have applied some 1 volt or something like that, if I am not wrong. Yes, so they have applied 1 volt, and this side is for reverse bias and this side is forward bias. Now what is happening? So let's draw the equivalent NPN. But here note that if we are putting just NPN or just two diodes, which looks like, if it looks like this one, it will not amplify. There is some different modification we have to make so that my BJT will amplify. And that modification is, instead of NPN, I am going to keep here N plus. With the very small base, I'm going to call it P. Little bit, it should be, so this kind of arrangement. So N plus is heavily doped N and N is lightly doped N. This one is connected to 0.8 volt. This one is connected to 1 volt. Now what is going to happen? If I am connecting 0.8 volt here, it will give, or this PN junction is forward bias and it will give some holes over here, or there is a flow of current in the direction of hole. If it's giving holes from P to N plus side, this N plus will create lots of, so more N plus electrons, or more electrons than what the hole came, because it's an N plus region. Because of heavily doped, there are lots of electrons which are moving to P side, or you can say that there is extra injection of electrons and there is a depletion, and because of very high battery connection, this electron will not be in P side but it will go to N side, and there is an experience of electric field. And in the reverse, uh, of electron flow, will have the current, and that current we are going to call it IC current or the collector current. What we have pumped was base current, and what we got, it's a collector current. There is a difference between IB and IC, because you put very small amount of base current, very small, and what you got as a collector current, it's very big because of the heavily doped region of N plus, and that decides something called current gain, and it's very popularly known as beta. So this beta depends on how you are doping your N plus region and how much heavily it is doped, what is the size of the base width, and how much you are making the size of N side, which is lightly doped. This whole setup will give you beta, but note that different companies, different manufacturer cannot make the same thing, N plus Pn, and your beta will be varying always. So this beta varying, we are going to call it the process variation. So this is one part. So here I explain the same thing and taken from Behzad Razavi, where there is a depletion region and there is a small amount of holes coming from base side, and that in turn create very large amount of electrons which are being pulled out by the battery, which is connected uh, with the large voltage, which is +1 volt, and that is creating a collector current, and this IB by IC will give you the beta factor, and which is known as which is known as the current gain. So this is very clear that maybe you can mimic your circuit with two diodes D1 and D2. There is no problem, you can do that, but by putting this D1 and D2 and mimicking the BJT, it's one end, because you can do it on paper, but in reality, to make this this circuit, this BJT, you need to make it N plus PN structure, not simple PN junction, PN junction. So that is not possible. So maybe like some people are asking in the interview, if you go to some electronics industry, people will ask you whether I can make BJT using two diodes. So no, it's not possible. The answer is you need to make N plus PN. That is the only thing, and you have to put P region very small, so that that N plus, all the electrons which is coming from N plus side will move to N side, or it will be collected at the N side region. So your downside, which is N plus, which is emitting lots of electrons, and the N side, which is collecting lots of electrons. That's why we are calling downside N plus as emitter, and the top side as a collector. Okay, so this is the same pictorial view in a different time with some. If it is t equal to 0, then this is t equal to 0 plus, and this is happening at t equal to 0 plus time, where this N plus Pn structure gives you amplification. So let's summarize what we learn from the basic mode of operations. So we have four different region of operations: cutoff, saturation, inverse, and active. And we know how these junctions are being formed, reverse or forward, depending on the voltage you are connecting. And the most important part for our course, it's active mode of operation, where we are keeping base to emitter junction as forward and collector to base junction as reverse bias, and by putting this way, you are getting a very high current from the collector side, and it's decided by the beta factor, and beta factor is depending on the N plus region, or how much you are doping, making the heavily doped region of N side. Okay, so these are the very basic two equations. You must be knowing that. So I'm writing for just for our reference. This is already some people have studied in school, but those who forgot that, I'm writing for them. So VB is based to emitter voltage, and VT is thermal voltage, and it's kT by Q. Generally it's 26 millivolt, and beta is current gain. So these are the equations, and our beta varies between 50 to 200. I'm writing this number from my experience. It may be more than 200 also. It may be lesser than 50 also, but it's all depending on how the manufacturing company is making. But most of the transistor I bought it from the some small markets in Delhi, maybe like Chandni Chowk, and those small markets in Chennai. All will have beta varies from 50 to 200. So it's not fixed. Every transistor will have different beta. This is one thing which I wanted to tell. And other than that, the nominal value coming from VBE is approximately 0.65 volt. This is the number I took it from Wikipedia, but in my experience, it's from 0.6 to 0.7 volt. Some maybe you people know that it's 0.7 volt, but it's written in 0.65 because it's average value. So it's a nominal value of VB is approximately 0.65. So you can assume whatever you want to assume, but you should keep in mind that that is a cut-in voltage of a diode. Now look at the input characteristic. How does it look like? Okay, I want to put input characteristic. Input characteristic look like this one. When there is a BJT and connecting here some VBE voltage, and I am checking how much collector current flowing through that. And it's called input characteristic. This is very well known to us. When there is a region of VBE, let's say if there is below 0.7 volt or below 0.65 volt, this particular this one is reverse bias, and there is no flow of current, right? So it's 0. And after 0.7, I'm drawing the ideal characteristic, by the way. So after 0.7, there is a current which is infinite. This is something ideal. But in reality, what is going to happen? It looks like this one. Some people may inquire how to find out this cut-in voltage. So you can find out cut-in voltage from putting the tangent to this curve, and wherever it's cutting, you are going to declare that voltage as a cut-in voltage. So this was the input characteristic, and from the given equation you can find out. So we had the equation, this one, this equation. From this equation you can write down VB is equal to VT ln IC by IS, right? That equation I took it from here and I kept it here. Now let's move to the next part where I want to make the output characteristic. So output characteristic is the one when I want to plot versus IC. And this characteristic have different part of a region of operation. One is cutoff. So when both are in reverse bias, there is a cutoff region of operation below this one. But I am more interested in saturation and active mode. There are two parts, one is saturation and one is active. In saturation, both the junctions are forward bias, and in active, this junction is forward bias, this junction is reverse bias. Then if I am putting some plus here and relatively this is negative, then there is a PN junction which is in forward bias. If P side is relatively positive and this side is negative, this is becoming again forward bias, and we are going to declare that region as saturation. For active region, this side is actually relatively, this negative is with respect to this plus, but still this part is relatively negative than this negative. So this makes forward bias and this makes reverse bias, and that's how we are having two different region of operation. And this region of operation will decide the characteristic which looks like this one. So till the voltage, when your voltage is following the exactly linear curve with respect to VC and IC, so that region of operation we are going to call it saturation. This one we are going to call it active. An active mode of region is the one when there is a slope which is 0. But this is ideal condition. This is not the actual one. So if you look at the curves for different VBE, so this side its VBE is increasing all the way. This is one way looking at the transistor, but this is not going to happen. The actual thing which is going to happen is look like this one. Your characteristic in saturation will have some slope, or there will be the control of VC on IC. Otherwise, if you are looking at our equation, collector current equation, in that collector current there is only role of VBE, there is no role of VCE. But I am saying that in reality there will be some role of VCE on IC. If this is happening, and this is happening because of many reasons, if you are making your base width not exactly what you are supposed to make, then that base width will create a problem, and your active mode of operation will have some slope, and that slope, if you are extending it, it will come to one point. Let's declare that point as a minus VA. And by this, so first of all, this kind of concept, it's known as early effect voltage. Or the early effect. This one is early effect voltage, and this effect is known as early effect. This is also known as a base width modulation, but this is happening because of wrong chosen of base width or wrongly manufactured transistor. So this will happen. And as we agree that in earlier case the collector current was this one, which does not have any VCE component, but by adding the realistic model we'll get one more thing which is called VCE by VA. So this will be added, and this is the actual equation of any collector current for any BJT when you are making that BJT in active mode of operation. So note that I'm writing only for active mode of operation. This is not for all the region of operation. This is only for active, and this active mode of operation will give us amplification. This is my ultimate goal. I want to make amplifier. That's it. So if that is the case, this slope, which is 1 by R, that slope is deciding factor. And if you are looking at, if this point is IC, and if you look at this particular slope, that slope will give you something like, okay, the slope is equal to IC divided by VA, right? Because y2 minus y1 and x2 minus x1, so IC by VA, and that slope is equal to 1 by R, and this R can be found out as VA by IC. So this is very important thing. Okay, so now let's go to the next part where I want to design my small signal model. So my ultimate goal is my BJT. This BJT is, I don't like it because this has three terminals are confusing. I studied resistor, capacitor, we have studied inductor, and we are comfortable in that. So if we can transform the whole BJT in resistor, capacitor, or maybe inductor, I can actually find out all the associated terms or associated time response, frequency response, or everything very easily. So first of all, this three terminal is not so much intuitive, and I can tell something about it very easily. It's not possible. So I have to put some model. That model is for linear. I'm talking about linear model, not non-linear. That model will depict the operation of BJT, and which will have all the R, C, and maybe current source, voltage source, all the things which you can solve using network analysis very easily. By just observation, you can tell that kind of model I want. So that model can be drawn by popular two-port network, and that two-port network may have H parameter, Y parameter, Z or ABCD, or maybe you can find out some S parameter also. There are many, yeah, and I like Y parameter because it's very intuitive, or maybe Z parameter. I like both of them. Even most of the new design engineer in the analog side, they are following these two rather than hybrid parameter, which is being used in old books. If you are reading old books, you will find that hybrid parameter is being used, but I like Y and Z because it's very handy and you can predict the behavior of your circuit very easily. So if I want to make any of the parameter, two-port parameter, I can do it using this one. So let's revisit the two-port network. If you have two-port network and if you have two voltage source, V1 and V2, and two currents, I1 and I2, right? So for that, you can write down, let's assume that I'm making the Z2 two-port network or the Z parameter network. First of all, how to write down the Z parameter? There are four Z parameter: Z11, Z12, Z21, and Z22. Because of two inputs, two inputs which are voltages and two currents. So combination of those four will give you four Z parameters. And for Z parameter, Z is impedance and it's always V by I. So the left side of this one I should write down as voltages. So V1 is defined as Z11 times I1 plus Z12 times I2, and V2 is equal to Z21 times I1 plus Z22 times I2. And by looking at these four parameters or these two equations, I can write down, or I can, let's make some of the comments which are very useful, that this is voltage quantity, this is voltage quantity. If you want to add two quantities, then you have to put those two in series. So if this is V1 and if let's call it this one Vx, and if this is Vy, then Vx and Vy has to be in series. So same KVL I am going to use. what I am going to do, I am going to put, so V1 is equal to, so there are two voltage sources I should put this side. Those voltage sources are, one is Z11 times I1. So I1 is already available with me this side, and there is a resistance which is Z11. So voltage drop across this one will be Z11 times I1, and as I2 is not available, I am going to put something in series, and that something is Z12 times I2. Similarly, another side, if I am putting V2, and this side if it is I2 current is available, then I2 times Z22 will give me the voltage drop across this one, and another voltage source which is known as Z21 times I1. So this may be the way of transforming Z parameter to a circuit. And similarly, for Y parameter, I am going little bit fast for Y parameter. Very black. Okay. So if I want to make it for Y parameter, what I am going to do? Your Y parameter is equal to I by V, and for that I will be available at one side, I1 and I2, and you will have Y11 times V1 plus Y12 times V2 and Y21 times V1 plus Y, I made mistake, 12, and here Y22 times V2. So for this side, what I am supposed to do, V1 is available this side, I1 is available this side. Note that both the quantities are current. This and this both are current, so they have to be in parallel. And for that, what we have to do, if I2 is available here, so for a V1 potential across 1 by Y11, I am going to get the first term, and if I want to get the second term, that is the current source, it has to be Y12 times V2. Similarly, for this side, you will have one current source, one resistance, and one voltage which is V2. This side it's I1, I made mistake, I2 this side, and this will be 1 by Y22, and this side it's Y21 times V1. Yeah. So if that is the case, let's keep this this network one side, and let's look at how your BJT looks like. BJT has VBE as an input. This is base, this is emitter, and this is collector. And there is one more input, VCE. And there are two currents, IC and IB. So in total, the network looks like this way. VBE is equal to IB times Y11 plus IC times Y12. VCE is equal to IB times Y21 plus IC times Y22. And if I want to find out Y11, Y12, Y21 and Y22, it can be found as follows. Y11 is equal to del VB by del IB. Y12 is equal to del VB by del IC. And Y21 is equal to del VC by del IB, and Y22 is equal to del VC by del IC. So if you remember our first equation, which is this one, and IB is equal to IC by beta. So these two equations In this equation, both the equation does not have anywhere IC. Anywhere there is no VC. There is absence of VC, means if I am taking something, I wrote by mistake Y parameter, Z parameter, it has to be IB this side, IC this side, and VB, VC, sorry. Yeah, so this will be 1 by, all will be 1 by. So if I am doing del IB by del VB, yes, I can do that. But for this one, where the terminology having VC, I cannot do that, right? So whenever there is like del IC with respect to del VC will be 0. This is my point. But there are some points where you want to find out del IB by del VB and del IC by del VC. So what is going to happen for these two parameters? So del IB by del, let's find out first del IC by del VC. So IC is IS exponential VB by VT. So if we take the derivative, you are going to see IS exponential VB by VT times 1 by VT. So can I call this one as IC by VT? And similarly for this side, if I am doing del IB by del VB, it's the same IC by beta, so it's IC by beta VT. So if these are the cases, we are going to call IC by beta VT as this one as R pi, because it's associated with the pi model. We are going to call it R pi, and this one we are going to call it GM. This GM is known as transconductance of amplifier or transconductance of BJT. When your BJT will act as amplifier, you can call it transconductance of amplifier, and this is pi resistance, or this is resistance. Yeah, and for simplicity we replace it with one symbol, which is R pi, which is IC by beta VT. So now if we replace those y11 and y12 and all those parameters, we are going to see here R pi, and we are going to see here GMVB. This is emitter, sorry, this is collector, this is emitter, and this is base. Here I am applying VB. I can apply here VC and delta ground, or you can whatever you want to apply around this box, but you can replace that 3-terminal device to 2-terminal. So it's 3-terminal BJT to 2-port network, which is Y parameter based. You can, if you want, you can derive it for hybrid parameter. If you want, you can derive it for ABCD, you can derive it for Z or anything. Whatever you want, you can derive it for that. Yeah. And for that, during small time, I'm putting a small quiz, maybe some 4 or 5 questions. You can look at those questions. You can try to find out the answers. Maybe some answers you know, some answers you don't know. So if you don't know, no problem. I'll try to solve it at the end of this lecture. So like I'm seeing one question: is there any specific technical reason as to why use Y parameter? Okay, so there is one technical reason, because it's very intuitive, and how it's intuitive, you can actually, you will see when our course will progress, because in that we are going to use some of the techniques to find out the gain, to find out the input impedance, output impedance, the loading effects. There are lots of things to find out the poles, zeros, all those things. Y parameter is very easy. That's why like most of the new engineers, they are using it. Most of the new means new century after 2000, if you read any book, people are using Y parameter. This is one thing. One more thing, like of course transistor is non-linear device, but if you are trying to solve that non-linear device in a one go, it's very difficult. Even if your system or anything is non-linear, if you are treating it as piecewise linear, it's very easy. So this is what we are going to do right now. We are not putting the whole non-linear transistor in one go. We are trying to find out its performance with a small part. So let's assume that small part it's linear, and by using that small linear part, we are making the Y parameter or the two-port network, which is linear model. And after this, let's look at some of the questions which I kept. But I think these questions we are going to solve at the end, not now. Maybe you people have looked at that. Maybe you have kept it in your notebook. Please write down and write down the answers. We'll check the answers, final answers at the end. Right now. So now this was a very simple thing, but some people knew it, some people didn't know that. But to make this course very smooth, so that everybody now in the course, that's why I kept it such a way that people can understand. So now the course which is starting, it's very interesting, and there are many words, many things which are known to everyone, but still some people has mystery. So like there is one word called rail. Rail is the supply voltage. If it is rail to rail, I'm talking about the positive rail means positive supply and the negative supply. And remember that whenever there is a supply, I'm going to make one symbol like this one. It looks like antenna, but that antenna we are referring as one supply. If it is VCC or maybe VE, maybe positive supply or negative supply, both are known as, one is positive rail, one is negative. So this is one simple thing, but some people has problem. There is one more thing. We agree that if you are in amplifier design, or if you are in analog, or if you are doing anything which is circuit related, you cannot get amplification beyond the rail. Beyond the rail means you cannot go beyond positive supply, or you cannot go below negative supply. Okay, so what I mean for that, some people knew that this triangle symbol is denoted for amplifier, and if it is single input and single out, and if the gain of an amplifier is 1000, and if I am applying 1 millivolt of signal, what is going to happen at the output? At the output, you are going to see 1 volt, 1 volt this side minus 1 volt this side. No problem, absolutely no problem. But what will happen if I, instead of giving this, if I give something like 1 volt, only 1 volt? So maybe some people, without agreeing our last sentence, maybe one can say that it's 1000 volt this side, 1000 volt this side, but it's impossible, because just now we agree with the one word that none of the circuit is in the world can give amplification beyond its rail. And the meaning of that is that you cannot go beyond rail. And so this is, let's say this VCC is equal to 15 volt and V is equal to minus 15 volt. So you cannot go beyond this, and your output will look like this one. Or we can say that this circuit has amplification beyond VCC VE, but it will be saturated or it's clipped off. We don't want that. We don't want that. But you cannot avoid that situation also. There may be two situations when there is, so there may be two situations. There is saturation in the output and there is not saturation in the output. If there is not saturation in the output for a given input, so that given input is known as small signal, and for that given input, if it is getting saturated, that given input is known as large signal. So if I'm asking you whether 1 millivolt is small or large, you will say that yes, of course, small signal, it's small signal, 1 millivolt. 2 millivolt, yes, it's small. If I am applying 3 millivolt, 10 millivolt, still it's small. If I am applying 15 millivolt, still it's small, because your output will reach plus 15 and minus 15 exactly without disturbing your sine wave or without saturated or without clipping off. If this is happening, then it's small signal. If it is not, then it's large signal. And all depends on the gain of an amplifier. If I change the gain, the small signal value and the large signal value will be changed. So whatever the model, whatever the thing we are making till now, or whatever the model we are making using Y parameter, we are going to call that model as small signal model, because this model is only applicable to small signal till the time. So just now there was one college called PECPY. They have asked one question, that whether the transistor is actually linear, but still you are calling it the transistor is non-linear, but still I am calling it linear. Linear, what do you mean by linear? Linear means this, crossing from zero. So there is some graphic error, so it's crossing from zero. Assume that it's crossing from zero and it's getting saturated. So it's linear only here, not here. So I'm not talking about this part of characteristic. I'm only talking about this part of characteristic where your input and output having some slope, and that slope deciding the gain. And if that is the case, we are calling that gain region as small signal region. And for that small signal region, we are putting the small signal model, and for that small signal region only we are finding out the gain. We are not interested in finding out the gain over here, because it cannot give you the exact value of small signal gain. First of all, if you are looking here, if your input is 1 volt and your gain is 1000 and it's saturated as 15, so you cannot say that your gain of the system is 15. Your gain of the system is much higher than that, but you are not able to see it because you are in non-linear region or your output is saturated. And that's why we understand what is real, we understand it should not go beyond that, and we understand what is small signal and what is large signal. These were very important terms to understand, and we learn it. Now let's go to the next part. There is another role of transistor. We want to we want to amplify, but not at DC value. We want to amplify beyond DC value, or it has to be AC. What I mean with that, I want to amplify AC signal only, not DC. The role of DC is, let's say in this black box, I'm putting some circuit, and this antenna are the one which are keeping these transistor or all the things which are inside in active mode of region. That is the role of this DC, or maybe some more DC if you are connecting as an input. The role of those DC to make transistor in active mode, nothing else. But your goal for amplification is for AC input. So that AC input, what from where this AC input is coming? Assume that you want to amplify your own sound, the speech sound. So that speech sound may be something like this. You want to amplify it because it has some frequency component, but you don't want this DC to be amplified, because if this DC will be amplified, then your output will be saturated. Let's say here input plus DC will be there, then that DC shifting of DC, because right now the DC value was 0. If it is shifted by little bit, if it is shifted by little bit, let's say your 15 is here, minus 15 is here, and your DC is now here, and the output which you are going to see will look like this one. Maybe you have seen similar things in your laboratory. Because of wrong chosen DC operating point is creating a problem. So you should not do that. I don't want shifting of DC or getting gain in DC part. I don't want that. I want only amplification at the AC. And if I want that, I have to follow what I am saying. And I am interested only in small signal gain, not large signal gain. Large signal gain will not tell me the real gain value. It will give me, it's an illusion. Maybe your gain is 1000, but you are seeing something 15, 20 or something else because of the saturated output. And sometimes you see that there is no gain at all. If you are applying plus to 15 to minus 15, your gain will be nothing. It will be just some saturated value. So all these things are the role of transistor. So most important part is first to give the proper DC value, because now we understand that if we are not giving the proper DC value, or if there is unevenness in the DC value, your system will have some harmonics, or your system will have, so what I mean for harmonics, maybe if you have studied Fourier transform, you must have remembered that if this side and this side is not equal, you will have different like harmonics. You can find out. If this is the only signal, then you are going to see only two signals, one at omega and one at minus omega, right? But in this case you will have more frequency components, and that is creating a problem. Whenever you have more frequency components, means your system is unstable, or you can say the system is basically non-linear. Next part, there is another word which is very important. It's known as biasing. You may have learned it or you may have heard it, but there are some more synonyms which are used in electronics engineering community. One is operating point, one is DC operating point, or some people call it DC biasing. So the role of biasing is to keep your transistor in a particular region of operation. If you want your BJT in active, let's keep it in active from the DC point of view. If you want to put it that way, then you have to apply certain level of DC operating point. That may be more than 0.7 volts. Sometimes you need only 0.7 volt. It depends. So whatever the voltage you need, you have to apply accordingly. For BJT, it's active mode of operation which we want to keep, so that my BJT will give me amplification. And for MOSFET, if you are using MOSFET, you need to keep in saturation. So I kept this word intentionally because BJT has saturation and active region. This is for BJT, VC versus IC, and this is VDS versus ID. So this side is known as linear or triode for MOSFET, and this side it's saturation. So even in company interviews or even many places, people tries to confuse students by asking this question, that like saturation mode of operation in BJT, it's linear mode of operation in MOSFET, whereas active in BJT is similar to saturation in MOSFET. But this is confusing. Look at this saturation and this saturation. So both are swapped. So keep this thing in your mind that it's very important, but those terminology has been swapped. Okay, and you want to use your BJT in amplification mode, then you have to keep the transistor accordingly in the given region of operation. Okay, so what we want to do, we want to bias it, we want to achieve DC operating point, and some people or some places it's known as quiescent point or the Q point. I am going to use common emitter configuration, and you must have seen this common emitter configuration. I am not connecting any AC supply right now. This is my output, this is my input, and so rather than calling right now input and output, I am calling still as base. This is collector and this is emitter. To make this transistor in active mode, what I need, base to emitter has to be forward bias, base to collector has to be reverse bias. Let's make it with some, so it has to be reverse bias, means this way. So if you want to do that, your collector voltage has to be higher than base voltage or base to emitter voltage, right? So this has to be high. Let's call it plus plus. This has to be plus and this has to be minus. So this is how it has to be. So with respect to collector, base has to be lower value, and with respect to base, emitter has to be lower value. So this is how it has to be. And whenever you are going to make this particular junction in forward bias, the voltage drop across the PN junction will be some cut-in voltage of diode, and that may be 0.6 to 0.7 volt. Let's write down 0.65 volt, or it may, this is a nominal value, right? You may keep 0.7 also, it's not big problem, but this is given as per other books and other people are following, so I kept it 0.65. It's generally people are using it. Okay, so what I need to do, I need to connect, if my emitter is connected to ground, if my emitter is connected to ground, now this is fixed to 0, I need to apply some voltage here so that this to this side becomes forward bias. And how to make that? If I need DC potential, one DC is already available with me, VCC. I have to use this, I have to reuse this point, because I can do one more supply also, power supply I can use, but this is also connected from power supply, this is also connected for power supply, so it's not economical solution. You should use, or you should reuse whatever is available with you, right? So there is one technique that I connect the resistance from here to here. Let's call this one as some R1 resistance. So now what is happening, if this potential here, it's VBE with respect to emitter, this is VCC, so VCC minus VBE divided by R1 is equal to IB, right? And I want to find out collector current. So collector current is equal to beta times this one. Similarly, if this is RC, then your VCE, where E is 0, so VCE is equal to VC actually is equal to VCC minus ICRC. You have to look at this VCC minus ICRC, that will give me VCE. IC is known to me already. So this is one equation I derived. This is one more equation I derived. And from this, as we agree at the beginning itself, that collector potential has to be plus plus with respect to this base voltage. So this VC, whatever you got VC, it has to be greater than VB. This is one condition to make your transistor in active mode. So even if you are getting something like 0.65 voltage, but if this collector voltage is lesser than that, then your transistor is not in active mode. Maybe you are in saturation. Okay, so you should make sure that VC, whatever we achieve, which has to be more than VB. Okay, but there are some problems. Some problems are, before going to those problems, let's look at something called PVT. It's called process voltage and temperature. So your design has to be PVT independent. Any design has to be PVT independent or PVT independent or robust enough. So what I mean by process? Process means transistor manufacturing. All the transistor has to be identical, or like this is one thing you can do, but it's very difficult to do that. You cannot make all the transistors identical or having the all same performance. So for that, what you can do, you have to make your circuit such a way that it's not depending on the process. Similarly, if you are changing, let's say this is your mobile, and this mobile has battery of 3.7 volt DC battery. If your mobile is fully charged, maybe this battery may have voltage more than 3.7 volt, maybe 3.8, 3.9, 4 also. I have seen it sometimes. Sometimes back I did that, and I found the battery is little bit higher. Sometimes it's even when it's at the verge of discharging, that potential go as low as 2.2 volt, 2.3 volt. So even if voltage is changing, my mobile should work. This is voltage independency. Another is, even if I am using my mobile in New York, or maybe if I am using in Afghan, if I use in Nigeria, wherever I want to use it, or if I go to Finland near the North Pole, still my mobile is working. Same mobile is working. Why it's working? It's independent of temperature. So these three things we are going to keep in mind when we are designing anything. And if we want to do that, first design which we have just suggested now, there is one problem. Look, there is beta dependency. So beta is associated term with process. It's depending on resistance R1. R1 is also again a problematic thing, because it's depending on temperature. So that resistance value is also changing with respect to temperature. So this circuit or this design, the technique 1 which we have proposed just now, which was looking very easy, it's not a good technique. It will give you wrong results in terms of process and temperature. If you take same circuit to, like as I told just now, to different part of the country or different part of world, you will get different results. You will not get the same answer. So this is a unsuccessful idea, I should say. If you are using this circuit, it's an unsuccessful idea, because it has process dependency, it has temperature dependency. and of course it has voltage dependency. So for our discussion of BJT, let's forget about voltage dependency. Okay, so it's not our study. It may be taught in a different course where you are studying even voltage band gap reference and other things. Then it can be taught. But right now let's forget about voltage. Let's try to achieve process and temperature only. But this is failing in both. So what my proposal is, let's look at the another circuit rather than taking this circuit. Let's make one more agreement that whenever, like we are engineers, so all the engineers will take, if they are intelligent one, all the intelligent engineers will choose something which is in ratio. If your resistor in ratio, if there are two resistors, if they are in ratio, the temperature variation will be nullified or they will nullify each other. If you are having two transistors, put it in ratio, it will work. If you are putting anything in ratio, that will work. So what my proposal is, if this is the circuit which you made just now, this is R1, this is RC. If I put one more resistance over here, which I am going to call it R2, then this potential, earlier that potential was beta dependent, that potential was resistance dependent. Now this potential Vx is equal to R2 by R1 plus R2 times VCC. It's a simple voltage divider, and that is what you are going to see here. But remember that there is one big assumption I made. Just now I made one assumption that there is no current going inside. If there is current going inside, of course this equation will be changed. And if you want to do that, what you have to do, you have to choose R1 and R2 accordingly. You have to check whether your R1 and R2 has to be very high or very low, depending on what is the input impedance looking into this BJT. So that we are going to study, but now I'm saying that there is no current going inside and you have to choose R1 and R2 accordingly. How to choose that? Maybe by understanding the input impedance and output impedance, you will learn that. But right now, let's assume that you know what value you have to choose. Then R2 by R1 plus R2 times VCC will give you the voltage here, or you can say that that is the VBE voltage, base to emitter voltage, right? Now, there is any other problem in that? Let's look at looking at collector equation, because that is what our main purpose of doing a whole analysis. Exponential of VBE by VT, that will be R2 by R1 plus R2 times VCC by VT. So here I can see that okay, R2 is maybe dependent on temperature, but R1 is also dependent by temperature, and both will have the same gradient of temperature. So the ratio of this one will be same, even if it goes to Finland or if it goes to India, it doesn't matter, right? This will work, this ratio will work. Excellent. This VCC by VT, it's also fine, no problem. And we agree that we are not looking into right now the voltage dependency, that VT is KT by Q, so it's also quite a fair number. Okay, and the impact is smaller. So the next part is the exponential. Look at this. Your collector current and this whole ratio has a exponential relation. This is not a good thing. Your control is very loose. If you like change a little bit of R1 and R2, your collector current is like increasing by exponential. We don't like it, and yeah, VT is also depend on temperature. Yes, there is one more thing, VT is also dependent on temperature. So there is temperature, there is no process dependency. That is one thing we remove. But there are two things, exponential, there is loose control from our end, and there is a temperature. Both the things are very bad. So to solve that question, we can have one more technique. That is a technique given directly in many books. We are adding one more resistance at emitter side, and that resistance, if you are doing this at the emitter side, this kind of circuit is known as emitter degeneration. So for that, the voltage available here, let's try to analyze how this circuit will react as. The voltage available here, it's some VE by RE. So that is the current flowing through this. You know how much VB is available. VBE is equal to R2 by R1 plus R2 times VCC, and VB is equal to VB minus VE. So VE is equal to VB minus VB. I made a mistake. VB minus VB, and there is small mistake here. It has to be VB, right? VB is equal to, this potential is equal to R2 by R1 plus R2 times VCC, right? And V is equal to this one. VB, we know that we want to achieve approximately 0.65 or maybe higher than 0.65. This is our agenda. So you can put directly 0.65 if you want, or if you add some more value. Now, if you put these values here, what is going to happen? Your IE, which is approximately equal to IC for the transistor action, you are going to have R2 by R1 plus R2 times VCC by RE minus VBE by RE. This is what you are going to see. So I'm seeing that, okay, there is a linear control, there is no exponential control, there is everything is in ratio, no problem, right? So linear control is better, of course. So this circuit is much better than what we have studied till now, and this circuit is the main circuit which is going to be used everywhere. Maybe you have seen this circuit and you have performed the experiment on common emitter amplifier with adding one resistance at the emitter terminal, which in turn going to be known as emitter degeneration circuit. So this is the main crux of the story, which is going to give you process and temperature independent with linear control of base voltage to collector current, or direct collector current is your linearly controlled. Okay, so other than that, there is one more technique which can be used, and it's very popularly used also, where you are adding one resistance between X and Y terminal. X is the base terminal, Y is a collector terminal. If you are connecting resistance which is small by nature, then of course it's like a diode connection. If you are looking from top, it's like a diode connection. Okay, first of all, you should understand this is diode connection because this is short. There was one diode, but it's already short. So if I'm looking from top, I'm going to see only one diode, and it's known as diode connection. So this is how you can make the diode connection, right? So if your resistance is smaller, from the collector voltage you can bias the base voltage, and that's how it will be self-bias circuit, and that self-bias circuit will make sure that the transistor is always in active mode of operation if your Vx voltage or Vy voltage is more than V or more than 0 volt. Okay, so this is what we were talked about, And if we are looking at different summary of what we have studied, so we learn the evolution of common emitter amplifier for different region. We start with the circuit which was sensitive to beta, which was sensitive to temperature. Then we went to a resistive divider network which was having the loose control, having exponential relation, and there was a problem with temperature as well because Vt was also associated. So there are two answers for that. One, you can use the self bias circuit, or maybe you can use emitter degeneration circuit. Now moving forward to that, I would like to tell you very important circuit which is used everywhere and which is very important, because as uh, the agenda of our course is to give insight on the practical aspects. So what is going to happen if you are connecting in a different way in laboratory? So I am connecting this circuit. So there is a DC power supply here, DC power supply, and here the DC potential is available, or we bias the transistor such a way that it's in active mode. We did it. Now there is no problem. Now I want to see this thing on oscilloscope. So I am checking that on oscilloscope by connecting its, like, all the chassis should be connected to the ground, and this is the probe. That probe may be 1x, 10x, whatever the probe you want to use, you can use that. And my main goal was to amplify. So if I want to amplify, I need to connect some input, and that input is coming from function generator, and this is also probe. It may be 1x, 10x, it's up to you, whatever you want to use it. Okay, and the chassis of function generator is connected to ground. Now one important thing I would like to tell: any circuit you are making, any circuit, it will have two things: input resistance, output resistance. Actually it has input impedance, output impedance, but as we are only dealing right now at resistance level, not at capacitance and inductance level, so we are not doing that. So if that is the case, two resistances, so every circuit will contribute output resistance and every circuit will contribute input resistance. So if you are connecting two circuits, let's say circuit 1 C1 and circuit 2 C2, if I connect directly both of them, what will happen? The output resistance of C1 and input resistance of C2 both will be in parallel, or they are going to affect the potential which is available here, right? This is one thing. This is one keynote I want to tell. So all the instruments are also, so this instrument, function generator or oscilloscope, all will have some input resistance, output resistance, input resistance, output resistance. I am not taking the output from here, but there is one more resistance. This is going to happen. Sorry, I should say R out. Yeah. So every circuit will contribute R in, R out, R in, R out, and they are the problem for me. How they are creating a problem? If you are doing this setup, whatever the setup just now we kept, it may create a problem, because we were expecting voltage over here as, let's call it VB voltage is equal to R2 by R1 plus R2 times VCC. We expected that, but the problem is when just looking at the circuit, R out of function generator, right, and you have connected VCC over here. Forget about the other circuit. This is R1, this is R2, or maybe let's put that circuit in blue color, which is light color we have. So just looking at doing the DC analysis, here the potential which we were expecting something like R2 by R1 plus R2 times VCC, now that has been changed to R2 parallel, let's call R out of func divided by R out of func plus R2 times VCC. So now extra resistance came into the picture. For the function generator, I am telling you the output resistance offered by function generator is approximately 50 ohm. This is the standard. We are going to use it as a standard. If you go to your laboratory, you will see that on the function generator it's written 50 ohm output. So it gives the termination of 50 ohm to the ground, or there is a 50 ohm resistance between that particular BNC connector to the chassis. So if that is the case, and if I replace this value to 50 ohm, right, sorry, this one is also 50 ohm, right, yeah, so it's a R2 parallel 50 divided by R1 parallel R2 parallel 50. Yeah, so in this case, if your R2 is very big compared to 50, and of course it will be bigger than 50 ohm, very big, and if it is very big number, maybe even if it's in kilo ohm, 50 is winning. This side also 50 is winning. So effectively let's assume that R1 is very big. So this is what you are going to see at the output, which is nearly 0 or something very low number, and this is not going to give you proper voltage which you are expecting. So what I can do before that, let's study one more thing. I believe you know it, but still I'm keeping so that you can understand. If there is a capacitor, its impedance is 1 by j omega c, and at zero frequency this becomes infinity, so it's an open circuit, and at infinity it's short circuit. So the role of this capacitor is blocking zero value, and at infinity it's allowing everything. So it allows AC, but it blocks DC. So what my point is, if I want to block, because what is happening in reality, if you look at the current flow is actually divided in this side. Actually one current was also going this side, but I assume that that current is not going. So there is current flow or the current sharing between R2 and 50. I don't want that. The DC current which is coming from top, what I can do, I put a big capacitor here and I block that current. If I block that current, I am going to see only R2. There is no DC current going from this side. However, if I add sine wave from this side, the sine wave can go from here to here. So effectively the voltage available here will be R2 by R1 plus R2 times VCC plus input voltage which I am applying and which I want to see as amplified version. So this is what I am expecting. Similarly, I can add some more thing, like for the completeness I can tell you one more thing. The circuit which we have made, the name was common emitter amplifier, and here VCC was coming. So VCC is coming from very popular because it's 220 volt 50 hertz for India, and there is a bridge rectifier, and the output of that one will give you DC value. So it's a AC to DC converter, and the output of this one will be the pulsating DC. Pulsating DC at the frequency of 50, and it depends on how you are keeping the capacitor resistance, all these value. So if you want to solve this problem, I don't want this one. First of all, look at this. This is not stable. It has to be always same voltage which is applied to my common emitter amplifier. So what I can do, I can apply a big capacitor. So this big capacitor, the role of this capacitor is it can only allow AC. So all the pulsating DC or the AC waveform which is at 50 hertz will go to ground, but this will not allow any DC. DC will not go here, but it will be only applied to this circuit. So this kind of capacitor is known as decoupling capacitor, because it's decoupling the DC quantity. And similarly, this capacitor is called coupling capacitor. It gives coupling to AC quantity. And same way, we can put one more capacitor just before this one. So that this one will also not load your amplifier. So this is what you have to do, and you have to put coupling capacitor accordingly. Yeah. So this is for today's lecture, and maybe we spend enough time. So we have 10 minutes more. So in that 10 minutes, I can discuss about these questions. So the question was, in which mode of operation for bipolar junction transistor both the junctions are forward biased? So that's the saturation mode of operation, right? Both the junctions are forward biased. The mode of operations in which the BJT is turned on is active mode, right? Because this is the mode of operation where we want the amplification. The base width modulation factor for a BJT is found out from which characteristic? It's the output characteristic where you have the slope in the active mode of region. The input impedance of the BJT is R pi. We will do it next lecture. Okay. Other than that, this is very important. The resistance of the terminal from where the laboratory function generator output is taken is 50 ohm, and the emitter degeneration configuration is used to achieve PVT independent performance. And similarly, you can answer others also. So I would like to have questions. If you have any question, if you want to ask, in chat some people. Yeah. So if somebody wants to ask question, I'm looking forward for questions. Okay, questions, or there are a few. So question, like I want to not reading all this question. Why don't you ask me directly? In a non-linear, how could it be equated by a non-linear? Okay, so linear model can be done by piecewise linear. Okay, so there is one more question, that why BJT is current control and FET is voltage control device. That we will derive it next lecture, not today. So that's a part of next part of our lecture. Okay, what is the role of two-port network in analysis of small signal? So whatever the two-port network we have made, it's small signal model itself, and that is what we are going to use it for our analysis. Which model is preferable, pi model or T model? Yeah, so in our one, we are preferring pi model. For all the analog engineers, they are following pi model. Pi model is easier, just to find out the input and output impedance very easily, just to check the loading effects, or which kind of amplifier you are using, voltage control, voltage source, or others. Amit, somebody wants to ask question directly. Let's say you can you ask Kartika to like ask everyone? Though one by one we can answer if somebody wants one question. Can transistor be used in impedance matching? Okay. Any question? If they want to ask like verbally directly, so ask them to raise their hand, because if I'm looking at these questions, if I answer like it will take another 1 hour, because there are many questions which were from. Okay. How early effect can be reduced? Okay, so the early effect can be reduced only by, okay, so if you want to reduce the early effect, then you have to do one thing only. You have to change the base width. That is the only thing. Otherwise, there is no other technique. You have to talk to, okay, why isn't IC voltage divider configuration? Yeah, what is the significance of using H parameter model? So there is not much difference between H parameter and Y parameter. You can use anyone, whichever you like. So why Y model is applicable to small signal? Because it's a linear model. First of all, linear model is the one where it's not getting saturated output. So Y model is that one. That's why it's applicable to only small signal. How DC current can be amplified? Okay, DC current amplification. You have to still you have to add DC as a DC current. Oh, not DC. Okay, then you have to use like IC and IB, whatever you are doing, do that using BJT. You can amplify. If you want the circuit, maybe next time I can give you the circuit how it can be amplified. Okay, why isn't IC equal to IS exponential VB by VT not used to explain in voltage divider configuration? You mean to say common emitter configuration. So it's the same thing. Either you can take it IC equal to IE, but those equations were readily available. So I took it that way. You can derive it from there also. Because VB, for VB, you need VB as well as VE. At the end, you should get the same answer. How early effect can be reduced? Yeah, you have to reduce, you have to play with the base width. How stability factors affects the performance of amplifier? Okay, the stability is third part of third lecture. If you want to understand how stability affecting the performance amplifier, you should attend third lecture. If there is no more questions, we can call it a day for today. Okay, thank you very much.